Welcome to Altar of the Demo Gods. If you're wondering what advice from two experienced sales engineers sounds like, it's a little like this.
Welcome back to Altar of the Demo Gods. I'm Keith Wilson, joined by my co-host, John Morton. John, how you doing tonight?
Ahoy, hoy, Keith.
I hear you, John. So we are recording this July 25th, 2024, and there was a pretty significant event that happened this past weekend in terms of travel and in our world of cybersecurity. And John got stuck in the middle of it. And
the world got crowdstruck.
the world was crowdstruck. I don't want to bag on those guys too much, man. The world is
a lighthearted joke.
the world is doing it enough right now. Like their PR. Oh man, it's PR failure after PR failure with them too. But anyway, that inspired us to do an episode on travel. We've talked about doing one for a while because it really is part of the job. Maybe not as much as it used to be, but it still definitely is part of the job. I say that is we're getting ready to roll into one of our biggest security conferences of the year. There's two big ones every year, and we're getting ready to roll in the second one, which is Black Hat. And there's going to be people that are sales engineers that maybe they've stopped traveling for the most part, but they will be traveling to this conference, right? I travel quite a bit still, even in my role as a director for business and for my personal life. But nobody travels more that I know of, like that I know personally, than John Morton. So John, what happened to you when CrowdStrike struck the world?
CrowdStruck. And I love our CrowdStrike fans. You know, we got homies that are there. So, hey, I'm always a fan of CrowdStrike. So I'll highlight that later. But this was actually a personal trip that I made to Aruba with my wife. So international travels always fun.
Like
I've done it
song.
Aruba, Jamaica. So I didn't even know where Aruba was until this first trip. Honest to God, I always thought it was like somewhere in.
I always assumed it was somewhere near Jamaica.
Me too, right? It's actually like right
Carligo, Montego, all those places.
Me too. And I'm looking on a map and I'm like, holy crap, it's right off the coast of South America. Literally, I could see Venezuela from the island. So
okay,
it was a great personal trip. I am beautifully tan for anybody who can see me on Yahoo. I won't pull my shirt up because that's
on Yahoo. You mean YouTube?
Yeah, YouTube. Jeez, I'm aging myself here, Keith. YouTube. Maybe it is on Yahoo too. Like my one picture thumbnail image is me with my shirt off, brown. But anyways, particularly tan, had a great time. It was a fun experience in Aruba, but it happened to happen that the end of my trip, that was a dope statement, happened to happen. End of my trip coincided with the world being crowdstruck in a lot of airlines and airports and a lot of different things being impacted. So I did have to...
Friday, right?
It was a Friday of all days. Friday of all days. I was going to come home on Sunday, I think, based on travel. But yeah, based on the impact, the event happening on a Friday, it impacted my travel all the way through Sunday. So,
well, and for people that do travel often for work, Friday is a busy travel day because that's the day you go back home, right? Monday is a travel day, Friday is a travel day. Monday you're going to wherever you're going to start your tour sometimes. Maybe if you're lucky, you're going to just one city instead of 3 or 4 different states. And then Friday, you go back home. So Friday being a busy business travel day even adds another level of, I think, mayhem on top of this too.
Yeah. Now that we're talking about it, let me make a point real quick. So consultants travel the most, I think. And I'm not a consultant, right? I work for a vendor, but I do a lot of consulting, if you will. But consultants are, like to Keith's point, Monday through Friday, they may hit 5, 6 different cities. I don't know how those guys do that. And they get, status. Why am I saying that? In the beginning of my sales engineering career, technical sales engineer, I used to believe I wanted to chase clout. What does that mean? I wanted to get status on Delta or United. I wanted to get status on Marriott or Hilton. And now I look at those guys that have status when I'm queued up in line and they're like 1K or Premier or Diamond or whatever, and they get to go first. And I'm like, what kind of idiot was I, Keith? There is no pride, in my opinion, at this stage of my career of having that much status where you do get to go first and you get 1 or 2 free drinks on the plane. I'm going to say it boldly with my chest. It is not worth it. But they've
devalued it. Yeah, they've devalued the program, and I'm I live in Georgia, so I fly Delta when they're operational. Which, as of today, I'm still seeing news reports of still canceling flights. I mean, some of them are getting back to normal, but still canceling flights. Yeah, like that's I chase status on Delta, but yeah, you could live on a plane and you may get like really high level status, but you're also living on a plane. And on top of that, recently, particularly Delta devalued their status a lot, where they're trying to force everybody into credit cards, right? And that seems to be the way a lot of airlines are going. With Delta in particular, man, I can't even check a bag without being asked if I want to get a Delta credit card.
Yes,
it's getting frustrating. But anyway, it was almost not worth it in the first place to have status. Now, there were times where having status was really nice. I will say, there one time in particular that I can think of, I had only gold status with Delta, so I didn't even have their top level.
Is it like gold, platinum, diamond? What, like, are there 4 or 5?
Gold.
I don't know, honestly.
I think diamond or whatever is their top. I've lost track because I don't even really care. Right? I just assume that gold is the highest I will ever attain from Delta.
Okay, I got.
But I only had gold, and I think they just recently changed this too. And I was on international flights, so I got access to the Delta Lounge because I had gold status. And I didn't even have first class tickets, but they were international flights, and I had gold status, so I got access to the lounge. I had, at the time, I was flying from Saudi Arabia. I had a layover too, so I had my original airport in Timbuktu, where was it, Jeddah, and then Jeddah to Dubai. So now flying into Dubai, and then a 10-hour or something like that flight to Amsterdam, and then after Amsterdam, I was to go on to New York. So we're talking like, I think it was close to like 15 to 20 hours where I'd been on planes and like, or at an airport and hadn't like had a shower or anything like that. And I got lounge access when I woke up in Amsterdam at 5 a.m. in their time, right, when we landed there. And I went to the lounge and they had showers. And my God, I'm not a big fan of public showers to begin with. I've used them at the gym before and stuff, but like, I'm not a big fan of public showers to begin with. And the idea of a shower at the airport sounds silly, but when you've been on a plane or only on a plane or only in an airport for close to 20 hours, like, you really want to take that shower. So in that instance, yes, like, status was awesome. That was really nice to have. And there's been a couple times where I got bumped to first class, but that doesn't happen that often. And in retrospect, like, the amount of travel I had to do to get to that status was has been made even harder now. But it was different back then too, right? Unless you're doing multiple international trips.
That's why I'm going to tell everyone who's listening to us, hey, if you're early in your career, I get it, man. I liked having that clout. It was cool, right? It seemed all right. But there's always another level. Even so, I can only speak to United. So very similar, Keith, right? Like, I've gone everywhere: Singapore, Australia, Israel, you name it, England, right? All these places. And there's always somebody who has way more status than me. So United, I swear, is the worst. And I hope no one's listening and bagging on me for this, because they're not a bad airline. From Denver, I can go direct almost anywhere in the world. That's super awesome. Probably like you in Atlanta. That's why you fly Delta. You can go direct. The more hops, I don't want to do hops. They're terrible. You're pressured, you're rushing, but the more legs you get, the more it adds to status. Anyways, with United,
well, you can't even do that anymore with Delta. Delta, it's purely the amount of money that you spend on your tickets. That's it. That's the only qualification.
I heard that too. So yeah, it used to be a combination of miles or legs or money, but now they're moving towards money.
Yeah, you could do like mileage hacking, right? Where people would figure out routes that they could take to get miles and not have to pay that much. Like they'd figure out the cost per mile to take a flight, and they would fly all over the United States over a 24-hour period just to get a ton of miles.
I remember of
can't really do that.
12 years. Yeah, the 12 years I've been traveling, maybe 2 of those years I made the highest normal level of United called 1K. Meaning you flew like 1,000 miles or 100,000 miles. That's it. 100,000 miles in 1 year. And that's the highest normal standard. Why am I saying that? 1K, you get to go to front line, you get 2 free drinks. Like, Keith mentioned, you get free club passes. But there's still one more level higher called global services. And the entry into global services is something like $75,000 of spend per year plus miles. What that includes is you get like a driver service. You get like the VIP treatment overall. I don't even know how these guys do that. Every time I see one, I'm like, you must be some sort of executive that just doesn't have a private jet, But it's just disgusting. The point of it is like, even with 1K, dude, the years I did that was such a struggle and such a nightmare that now I'm almost to the point of going on like Expedia.com, finding the cheapest, fastest flight, cheapest, fastest hotel, and then going with that. So the Aruba thing is case in point. Like right now I'm United Platinum, meaning I get direct line into call United. I get a human being customer service. I don't have to pay for change fees. I get like 3 free bags. None of that helped me in this weekend event of being stuck. So my status...
Well, everybody had the same status at that point.
Yeah, we're talking paper entries. There is status doesn't matter. Maybe even global services were probably, those guys were upset.
Where I will say that status does help, generally, at least with Delta, is if you're gold or above, you have your own line that you can call into. So at least the amount of the volume of customer service calls that you will face will be lower compared to the general public if you have status.
So just the lowest.
They're going to tell you the same thing everybody else is hearing. You're just going to hear it faster. That's all.
Yeah, right. We'll see what we can do. Now, not going to lie, one time I drank way too much. I was at a bar with Keith in Atlanta. I contacted that customer service line. They fixed everything I messed up within a matter of like 3 minutes. Remember that, Keith? It was beautiful.
Yeah, I do.
I booked the wrong flight. I booked the wrong day. I booked everything wrong. And they charged me like $2,000. They came in and they fixed all that. So there is value to it. But just to recap about this weekend, there were only 2 major airlines really impacted by this cyber snafu, if you will, update snafu. Delta being the number 1, and then United being second. So Delta was so impacted dramatically, we're talking like 500 to 600 flights canceled per day. That's detrimental. United, they had a list of airports and flights that
I tried to sell them a different EDR solution a couple of years ago too. So, that's all I'm saying.
And but yeah, United was second, and it was relative, maybe 100 flights, and then like I think 5-6 different airports. Denver being one of those, so I was impacted. But Delta took the biggest hit, United took the second hit, and then it kind of cascaded from there. So not everybody was impacted, but now the good news was because I have status at Marriott, I was able to extend my stay in Aruba and get a late checkout. So that was nice. So thank you, Marriott. I'll tell a story about the DC Marriott in a second.
I will say, like, airlines, it was bad. Hotel status I don't really have anymore, but when I did have hotel status, that was worth it. I remember going to my grandmother's funeral in Canada, right? And my parents and my sister all traveled up together from Florida, and then I met them up there. So I get there, and I find out that my dad is sleeping in... My mom and dad were sleeping in the bed that my grandmother died in. My sister was sleeping on my grandfather's couch. in his 2-bedroom condo. So I was like, no. Like I told my mom, my sister, because my dad wanted to stay with his dad, and I got that. I understood.
Yeah.
But I told my mom, my sister, I'm like, let me get you a room somewhere else. So this is in small town in Canada too. I think they only had like one Hilton property. This was when I had Hilton status.
Gotcha.
So I go in and like they're nudging each other at the front desk. He's got diamond status. I had diamond status, which was their top level.
Yeah.
And it was like they'd never seen anybody with diamond status before. And they're like, I'm at their pantry trying to find something real quick to eat. And they're like, whatever you want, just take it. Just take it. Like they're friendly Canadians on top of having this status. And then, so I get my mom and my sister a hotel room there. And, they're like, oh yeah, you guys, you go ahead and pick out something too. Whatever his status, you guys have that too. You do whatever you want. You do it. He's a good boy. He paid for your room. He's a good boy, and he spends over $10,000 a year or whatever it was with Hilton. And I was like, I do. Like it became one of those things. Like, wow, I didn't even realize I spent that much. But hotel status has been has been beneficial. Getting the late checkouts. Having you tend to get more bonus points faster, and which you do with airlines too, right? For the
room upgrades, just a different experience.
Yeah, they tend to be more accommodating. Okay, so what'd you have to do then? Just kind of wait it out at the hotel in Aruba while you worked with United to get.
Yeah. So I worked at United. Yeah. And me and my wife, there was no complaints about staying one more day in.
Let me ask you this, right? Because this is like a nightmare situation when traveling. What was the first thing you did when you found out, like, oh shit, we may be in trouble? What was the first thing you did?
So yeah, good point. So let's make it, beneficial and educational to our listeners. When I'm in a travel situation like this, the first thing I always try to take care of is the airfare first, the air travel first. Everything else you can figure out after, I promise you. You can find another hotel, you can find another car, you can find everything else, but the air travels first. So the first thing I did was scramble to say, what is the next logical flight I can take that is reasonable? So we start going through, and unfortunately with United...
So your first step then was to call United.
Well, I didn't do that. I actually looked on the app first. So I'm looking on the app about...
You're looking on the app. Yeah.
Yep.
So and a lot of the apps have gotten better about allowing for self-service, like when there's something wrong with your flight, about allowing you to rebook and things like that.
They have gotten better about that. So not only can you look at the flights that are available, but you can communicate via chat. It makes it so much easier to just book the travel.
Yeah, that's certainly
that was my knee-jerk reaction. Let me look in and see what flight is like my flight. So there's no direct flight from Aruba to Denver. I had to either hop through Houston, DC, Washington, DC, or like the Northeast. So okay, let me just replicate the flight I have today on another day. Unfortunately, though, because of the particular outage, all of a sudden, Houston doesn't even show up as an airline or an airport available for a hop. I look at DC flights, and the DC flights aren't logical. What do I mean by that? Normally, you can have a 1 or 2 hour layover if you have a hop. All the flights are saying you have, at a minimum, a 12-hour layover. So I'm starting...
and that's not normal at all. Yeah.
That is not normal at all. You're like...
Here's another travel tip. Let's pause here. Speaking of layovers, never book a layover shorter than an hour.
Oh, no.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
You won't make it.
Don't do it. 45 minutes.
Or if you do, you're going to be that asshole on the plane that's getting up out of their seat and running for the front door, knocking people over.
Yeah. They make the announcement, would you please stand by the side? Keith Wilson in row 38B has a connecting flight. And you're like, you don't want to be that person. Less than an hour. Good point. Don't do it.
Yeah, just don't do less than an hour. Yeah. You will not be sitting in that airport for an hour. You will have enough time to get off the plane, which takes 15, 20 minutes sometimes, depending on where you're sitting. Sometimes it's really quick. And then you'll be able to walk to your connecting flight, which the way that it works. It's always on the other side of the airport. It's never right next door. It's always...
Or another terminal, dude. Here's another thing, and this is selfishly me saying, if the connection is through Chicago or through DC, 2 hours isn't even enough time, in my opinion. Those are the worst places to transfer. So less than an hour, don't do it. If it's greater than or less than 2 hours in DC or Chicago, don't do it. And then to me personally, if it's more than 5 hours of a layover, I personally don't do it.
And
international time.
International, I would say over 2 hours as well for international travel.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, normally I don't do, so I'm selfish, right? So yeah, another good point. Even when I talk to every CFO at every company I work at, quality of life matters, man. You don't want to kill yourself at these airports, having to do like 8 hops to get somewhere. And,
right.
You know, a low budget bed bug hotel room. It is very important that you still maintain some quality of life. I know that sounds selfish. It's a first world problem, but I promise you in meetings, you're going to be terrible if you do these things.
Yeah. With that being said, sometimes you don't have a choice, right? Sometimes you got to take those layover flights when, you know, it's, at least for me, right? It's hard to justify like, oh, well, a direct costs $7,000. Okay, well, how much does the one with the layover cost? $700.
Yeah, well,
like okay, take the layover, Keith. Sorry.
So here's a quick note. I know we're deviating. We're going deep into this travel thing. We could do multiple episodes on this. Numerous times I've gone to Singapore, and from Denver to LA is like 2 hours, 2.5 hours. From LAX or from SFO, San Francisco to Singapore is roughly 18 hours. To Keith's point, if you go to look and book business class with like a lay down flatbed and everything, $7 to $10 grand is cheap. And no CFO is going to expense that. I'm just telling you now,
especially that class. Yeah.
Especially that class.
It doesn't happen anymore unless you're a consultant. I do believe, and even then, but I believe like the bigger consultancies will have like they allow.
It's in your contract. Yeah. So like again,
it's not normal anymore. Not for an SE.
Here's a little. Not for a technical sales SE, right? So every time I went to Singapore, here's what I did though. Here's a little bit of a hack. Not all those flights get booked for the exact reason we're saying. Now, this is a little bit of gamble, but I'd say 90% of the time it's worked for me. So I book a flight to Singapore, to Keith's point. Business class is 10 grand. I cannot argue that with the CFO or head of sales. It's just going to be a nightmare. I'll book the class I can book for around $1,200, let's say, right? Now, I fly my leg from Denver to LA, and what you can do always, remember this, anybody listening, you can go talk to the gate agent. And if you put on a little bit of charm and you be really nice, they can offer you special deals on that business class upgrade. So every time I've flown to Singapore and back home, I've gotten that upgrade. So I paid $1,200 for the flight, and I paid anywhere from $700 to $1,200 for an upgrade. So the total cost is around $2 grand, $2,500, when the purchase price up front would have been $10K. My point is, you go talk to the gate agents, you tell them where you're at, you be really nice. They can give you deals. Give you deals.
Let's go back to your story now. We got deviated into
we got a little bit of deviated, man. There's so much happening here.
You're trying to find your way home.
So I go back, look on the
layovers.
App,
Layovers are blowing up in DC. You said there's stations.
That's where they wanted to send me, or Cancun, or somewhere else. I can't remember, like Panama. I'm like, all right, man, customs and stuff in other countries. I don't want to.
They want to send you to they want to involve a third country in this transaction now.
A third country to go through customs with a 2-hour layover. So we already talked about that. Not a good deal. Yeah. So I'm like, all right, DC, man. DC's not bad. 12-hour layover. I'll do that if I can book a Marriott. So I have Marriott status and I can use Marriott points, because the whole time United's saying, hey, we'll help you pay for whatever you do. So I go through the app, find a decent flight with a 12-hour layover in DC. And of course, they're like, well, you got to transfer to BWI. You can't just fly out of Dulles. So I got to fix that as well. But I do it all in app. It's easier to do it in app. And that's kind of where I got situated. So I moved from Sunday to Monday with a 12-hour layover, leaving on Tuesday afternoon.
So you finally got home, though, after all of that.
Here's the kicker. My favorite part about this 12-hour layover, so anybody listening, if you got little ones who happen to listen to this podcast, put their earplugs in now. So I get this 12-hour layover.
Please don't curse, because I got to edit it out.
No one's going to curse, but it's the story itself. I get this 12-hour layover at the Marriott DC. I'm not going to name it because there's like 8 of them, but it was one right near the airport. So check in, right? Everything's going great. Flight's great. Everything's great. First class upgrade. Got lucky. Everything's great. 3 a.m. This prison cell of a hotel room that's no bigger than my office right now. I start hearing moaning and grunting through the wall of some neighbors next to me just going to absolute pound town. And I'm like, look, man, I've been traveling for like, at this point, roughly 15 hours. And I'm really happy for the guy next to me who's with this girl who's moaning and screaming, oh God, but it's 3 a.m. and the walls are paper thin. And I'm like, geez, can this get any worse? Because I have a 9 a.m. flight. So this is something else to be prepared for in your travels. No amount of status could have saved me here, hearing this rough moaning and groaning for about 20 minutes in the room next to me at 3 a.m. So,
I mean, you could have started making noises back. That probably would have saved you.
I thought about it. I was like thinking about banging on the wall and joining in. I heard the guy's name. I think his name is Brian. Kudos, Brian, for whatever you were doing at 3 a.m. in a DC hotel.
Realistically, it can only go on for so long.
You would hope, right? And I'm like, please, for the love of God, let this guy finish here in the 20 minutes. I got a flight.
This is going to come to an end sometime within the hour at least. Right? Nobody has that much energy at 3 a.m.
I got my alarm set at 7. It's 3. I'm counting down the time. I'm trying to turn the fan on in the room, right? The AC. I'm like, just drowned out the noise. That was the highlight of the low light of the trip, but most interesting part of the story, if you will.
So we only have a couple minutes left. I don't want to do our summary like we did. Instead, I want to do I want to talk about like travel tips, travel hacks that pop in your head. So I'm gonna start, and then I'll throw to you, and we'll come back to me, and we'll go back and forth a little bit and see what we can get out of this. All right,
let's do it.
So when I pack, I don't fold or roll my clothes. I do something called bundle packing. That's basically where you start with your shirts and kind of lay them opposite each other. And then you take your pants and your shorts on top of that, and then lay those opposite each other, almost like it's a T or like a T now, right? Mm. And then you put something in the center. I usually put like socks and underwear, or even just socks or whatever. Then you wrap shorts around that, the layer of shorts, and then you wrap the pants around that, and you start wrapping your shirts around that. So you get this bundle that almost looks like a pillow by the time you're done. And you put that in your suitcase. It ends up, and then when you get to wherever you're going, you take it all out, and you set it out or you hang it up or whatever, and it has almost no wrinkles on it. Like it has, because you're not creating all these creases and you're not creating friction, and you're just keeping it in this bundle, it doesn't get all wrinkled. So that's my travel hack number 1. John.
I love it, Keith. As a submarine sailor, I can appreciate that. I used to have a coffin rack where 2/3 of it, Charles and I talk about it. That was all the space I had. We would do a similar bundling. Highly recommend it. One of the things I do recommend too for anybody in technical sales, SEs, when you got to do expenses, bring your own water bottle, like the refillable kind. So I have like a Stanley one, not like the big ones that's all the rage with the handle and stuff. I have more of a tumbler style. But now a lot more airports have like water dispensers. So you don't have to go to like pay for water. To me, it's just a waste, dude, of recycling plastic and water like that. But you pack a water bottle and just it's like, it sounds simple, but always have that water bottle with you and you're good to go.
Yeah. My next travel hack is buy a separate set of toiletry and toiletry items, and just keep that in a bag that always stays packed. So like I have, my different set of deodorant and different face wash and whatever else I bring with me that I may have the exact same thing in my shower. I will have duplicates of in there so that I don't have to remember bringing something along or whatever, because that stuff gets forgotten pretty frequently. So another tip to add on top of that tip is when you do a sweep of your room before you leave, also do a sweep of your bathroom and your shower to make sure you're not leaving anything behind there.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. Like I have it's like a leather case that I put stuff in. To Keith's point, it's disposable. Don't worry about it. Because I don't like to check a bag. I like to put every single thing I have into my carry-on, even my own backpack. I don't put it under my seat because like it takes up room, so I can make it all fit. But yeah, another interesting travel hack is, I actually do keep a separate set of credit cards and identification. So I have global entry. So I have a little global entry ID card, and I also have a separate credit card. I keep those like in my backpack separate from what I normally carry, meaning if I lose my wallet or I lose, my phone case, I have my backpack that has cash in it. It has a credit card in it, and it has like my global entry card. That way you don't have to really worry about losing something. It sucks, but you have a backup set that's separate from what you have.
Awesome. We can go on and on and on with this. I think we have a lot to say when it comes to travel. We've done it quite a bit. I will say it's been nice, at least for me. I don't know about you, but I haven't been traveling as much in my role as a director. I have been traveling, just not as much. I was like you too. When I was younger, I was gung ho on let's get it done. I'll be wherever I need to be, but it gets exhausting. Particularly, the hotel room, staying in hotel rooms and in a city where you don't know anybody and all that stuff.
Yeah,
so it does get exhausting.
One last thing.
But
one last thing.
Will help your career. Go ahead, John.
One last thing. I got to say this definitively. Just be nice. And you would be surprised how far a smile and a nice gesture goes when you're asking for help from someone at the airport or in an Uber or at a restaurant or at a hotel. I am telling you now that has saved my bacon 1,000 times. Just be nice. I know it sucks. It's hard. You may have a hard day. It sucks, right? Just be nice. It'll go super far.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a lot of gate agents and people that work at the airlines that get screamed at that really don't deserve it at all. They're put in a bad situation.
Exactly.
All right. So if you enjoyed tonight's episode, please like, share, subscribe. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can go to our website where we list out all the different places that you can find us, which is pretty much anywhere you can get podcasts, and YouTube if you want the video show. Plus we have blog posts and all that good stuff on our website, which is demogodspod.com. If you'd like to be a guest, if you think you'd be a good guest, or if you have questions for us, you can email us at demogodspod@gmail.com. Join us next week. We're going to be talking about competitive analysis and understanding who your competitors are and how to sell against them. That's going to be an exciting episode. You join us here next week on Altar of the Demogods.